Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector comes out July 22nd, and with it, we get an exciting 40k strategy game that has a lot of great tabletop crossover elements. It's not the RTS of, say, Dawn of War, but it absolutely scratches that itch of playing the beloved sons of Sanguinius against the vile Tyranids. But there are some complexities in the game that are not so apparent up front, or a few tricks that I learned over the hours I've put into the game so far. So in this video today, I'll be highlighting some top tips for beginners to help you with understanding certain mechanics in the game and getting the most out of your campaign journey. As is customary, I like to front load the information in my videos so as not to keep that information ransom. The entire list of items I'll be covering is in the description, as well as chapters within the timeline. So you can just quickly navigate to each topic that interests you, or maybe the ones you didn't know anything about. If you're enjoying this type of content, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I cannot tell you how it helps every content creator you watch to some varying degree, and I cannot tell you how annoying it is to always have to say it. But lastly, if you have yet to pick up Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector, you can do so using the link to my Nexus Store in the description. Nexus gets Steam keys directly from the developer, then gives them to you, and it's a great way to support the channel. But let's get started on my top 8 tips for beginners in Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. This first tip is not huge, but in a lot of ways it is. So if you select one of your units and then hover over the enemy, you can see, hey, your hit and your damage as well as all their health. If you left click them, you get a little bit more information as far as hit chance, damage, crit chance, and then the cost of your action points. Well, there's more granularity to this that the game doesn't have turned on by default. I'm gonna press escape, go to controls UI, and then we've got this right here, show detailed enemy information. And this is huge to understand a lot of the things we're going to talk about in a little bit. So we're going to select a unit again, then left click on the termagants, and it's going to give us how the hit chance breaks out, how the damage breaks out, and how crit chance breaks out. And I'm going to talk about those in later tips, but understanding how all those things are influenced by things like armor, AP, your optimal range, all that stuff is so huge. And the beginning starts with that detailed information tab. Our next tip here is about army management. And I think it's pretty tempting to just simply, press this button over here and fill out all of our unit slots. Well, what's important is that units do gain veterancy over time, and you can move those units from your reserves into units under your command. Units under your command are going to be the units that you'll pull from when you jump into a mission. You don't necessarily need to add all 14 of these units at 1,000 points. You're going to have a limitation, which we'll go into in just a second here. But let's go ahead and select this unit. I can transfer this unit to reserve. It has a campaign mission history, and I know it's hey, it's got a little bit of veterancy attached to it. So let's press this button. This pushes it out of my main army and then into the reserves. And the reserves, you can see here, this is just a standard guy. He's not been in anything. So I could delete this unit. No big deal, no harm, no foul. But these ones, okay, this guy's been a part of 2 missions. This one, this one, this one, this one, they have not. Other one of these units, this guy's been a part of 4. You'll want to save these actual veterans that you'll want to take part in other missions that maybe make a little bit more sense. Hey, we're holding a hard point and we don't need as many speeders. So let's put these speeders in reserve and move up our aggressors. They're going to be better in this situation. We'll transfer that unit to the army, go back to units under our command, and we can see now that the aggressors are in our army right here. One other little kind of side tip to this is, when you are setting up your army management and adding units into reserves or into your main army, make sure you take a look at the mission you're about to do, because it's going to tell you the army size limitations you can do. And I wasn't aware of this until the 4th or 5th mission, because I was filling up my whole entire army, jumping into the mission and going, oh crap, I didn't see that there was an army size limitation on this screen. I thought it only gave you the limitation when you actually jump into the mission. So this helps you kind of set up things ahead of time, and it's a real huge boon. Tip number 6 here is about planning your HQ upgrades and really understanding how these play into the entire game. You really want to choose these based off of, say, the units you want to use the most, how you want your army compositions to be filled up, so on and so forth. And as you can see from the little indicators on the right side, Each tier costs 2, 3, 4, or 5 points each. And then when you hover over one of these, it gives you information about how this upgrade applies to the campaign. So for instance, Battle Line Tactics, if I look at the right now, it says Intercessors, then under that it says Abilities. This adds that ability to all Intercessors. I personally really enjoy Intercessors and think they're quite strong in this game. So I'm going to select this. But this will again give me a frag grenade ability, and then Intense Focus here is going to give me a stat line increase for all Intercessors. And then lastly too, here I have got this ability to add an auto bolt rifle weapon option for my Intercessors. We're going to go into that in a little bit once I jump over about 2 more tips from now. But it's, again, pretty important to take note here. Like, this is a command ability only applying to Carleon. Even if I go into some of these other ones, this is an ability that adds to Carleon. This is another ability. This is a weapon option. So looking at each one of these and kind of planning out, hey, what do I want to use the most of? Am I going to be using Assault Marines? Well, here you go. Assault Squad, Assault Squad, Assault Squad. Let's jump over tier to Arturo, and we can even see that, hey, if you want to go heavy into aggressors, you've got that option here, 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 so on and so forth. But too, there are some other things that apply to not just simply a single unit, the main character, or what have you. You also have stuff that applies to a generic kind of unit classification. So in this case, this is going to give 5 HP per model stat increase to all of my Primaris infantry. They standard have 75 HP. This is going to increase it by 80. So taking a look at these and planning them out a little bit ahead of time is going to save you a lot of headache and making sure that you get the most out of the units in your campaign. But you're probably wondering, hey, I don't know what the hell Supercharge does. I don't really understand how the Heavy Plasma Incinerator works. Well, let's jump over to the next tip to give you a really quick way to take a look at that. So we're back here at the main screen. Let's go ahead and click Skirmish. And from this screen, we're going to be able to custom build out an army. And with that even, we can take a look at some different options within that army. So let's just go ahead and unfortunately, I apologize if this is a spoiler for some of these units. Maybe you didn't know they were going to be in the game, but they're there and it's awesome. So let's go ahead and select, I just added them in. Where the hell did I add them in? Oh, there we go. Here are the Intercessors. So, hey, Battle Line Tactics, that ability I talked about, well, here it is. And Frag Grenade, that ability I talked about, here it is. So if you want to test any of these abilities out before you add them into your campaign, start up a skirmish, go ahead and play a little game. You can auto-generate an army against Tyranids and get an idea for how this plays out. Is this an ability you actually like? Does it play into your play style? You know, like for instance, maybe you don't want Supercharge. Makes a range attack with 30% damage and +1 armor piercing, but each model has a 25% chance of taking 40 damage. I mean, if you give your guys the 5+ HP bonus, that's going to be 80 total health on these. That is a 50% possible damage hit on them. So maybe that's not, you don't want that high risk, high reward. So you can use this to your advantage to kind of see how you want to build out your units and your characters. But even more so, there's another important option here, and that comes down to your army organization. That is my next tip. So here we are with the army organization tip, and one thing I had talked about in the army management portion was making sure you budget your points for options that you can give to your units. So when you jump into this screen, in that pre-battle screen, when you're selecting your units and placing them around, if you press this little button, you have got a bunch of different items you can configure if you have unlocked them with the HQ upgrades. You see how this is all coming together. Big brain moves. So for instance here, Inferno Pistol, it's going to cost me 40 points as denoted in the upper right portion of this tooltip. So I'm going to click this and you can see I've got 1,010 points. It's going to bring me up to 1,050 and it's going to change the Infernal Pistol on my Lieutenant. Same thing here with Thunderhammer. It's going to be 65 points. Boom, there we go. It's now turned on for my character. And I can do this too with stuff like the Death Company. As long as I've unlocked it with the HQ upgrades, you can really customize how a lot of these characters and all these units play into your army. This is just like tabletop, right? Spending those little bit of points here and there to get those different loadouts for a lot of the same units you might have in your army. hey, you know what? I've got a lot of intercessors here. Well, some of them are going to have auto bolt rifles and some of them are just going to have bolt rifles. However you want to configure it. This is huge, and you don't have a lot of these options in the beginning of the game, but it is important to understand how they will affect your point balance and how they'll affect your army management and army organization as you get into the later portions of the campaign and some of the skirmish battles you intend on playing. Tip number 3 is about hit chance and accuracy fall off. So let's go ahead and select our intercessors and then hover over bolt rifle. So all of these markers across the screen give us some context clues as to what's going on. The size of the marker tells us whether or not there's going to be a sharp accuracy fall off. So take a look here at these ones up here in this corner as I hover back over. You can see that there are either no markers or they're very small, meaning if I move to those locations, there's going to be a sharp accuracy fall off, maybe because I'm blocked by cover, whatever the issue is. But the brighter the marker, that is an indication of being within optimal range of some form of target around me. Let's take a look here at these Hormigons. So right now, my to hit on them is 65%. Hovering over one more time the bolt rifle, we can see that it has an optimal range of 3. That's right, indicated there in the range line. Then at the bottom, we see base accuracy 80, meaning that at the highest, unless there's some sort of bonus or something of the sort, the bolt rifle will only have an 80% chance to hit. An ability might bolster that, but pretty much 80 is what it's going to be. And our accuracy fall off per tile outside of the optimal range is 10. So left clicking here at the Hormigon, we get from the detailed information, the accuracy fall off is a -10. There's also an enemy evade of -5. That's the next tip we'll get into here, but our hit chance right now is 65. So let's go ahead and take a step forward. For the Emperor. And we hover over one more time and we see that our accuracy is now at 80, but the enemy evade brings us to -5. Remember how I said this detailed information gives you, well, a ton of detailed information? Let's take a look at a different unit, like this one right here. And, let's select these guys and then look at that unit. So this gives us way more, right? We see a cover penalty that's being applied to it, all sorts of things. So that detailed information button really helps you out in determining what is going against your hit chance when you're trying to shoot things. But let's jump now into evasion and how that also affects your hit chance. Tip number 2 is about evasion, and evasion differs from unit to unit depending on what type of unit it is. Let's take a look at these intercessors. They have 5 evasion. And when you hover over this, it tells you lowers the accuracy of enemy attacks. This value is only effective if the unit has moved since its last turn. So if you move, you get evasion as a kind of additional defense when it comes to the hit chance of something. Taking a look too at this unit of Termagants, they moved last turn, so you can see enemy evade -5. This changes too. When you take a look at a quote-unquote single entity or just a single unit model like this, this brother, his evasion is 10, or Harlean is 25. But this also differs, again, like I said, depending upon the target. If you're looking at, say, a Dreadnought, or in this case, a big old daddy Tyranofex over here. Now, hovering over him, this tells me that his evasion is -20. So that is pretty poignant. I'll give you an example here. So selecting this assault squad, and I click on this, it says enemy evade -5, and you notice that this is not grayed out. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of situations going on here, like our fall off, which brings us down to 60 accuracy, -5 evade. Now that's down to 55. So what evade is it's a bonus, or I'm sorry, a defense with hit chance versus armor, which is a bonus or defense with damage and crit chance, which that's our last tip. Let's go ahead and click all the way over here. Now, obviously we can't hit this guy, but you can see that enemy evade is grayed out, meaning that it is not detracting from base accuracy. See how it says -20 up here? It is actually adding. So if there was no accuracy fall off and there was no cover penalty, we would actually get a bonus to our accuracy, making it more likely to hit. But of course, this leads very well into our last tip, which is about armor. All right, tip number 1, and the biggest one of the game in my opinion, is about armor and damage. So Every single unit in the game has armor, and every single weapon in the game has some variation of armor piercing. Maybe not the most, but it's got some somewhere in there. Especially when it comes to the lauded Space Marines of the Imperium, these Battle Brothers have 5 armor, a good amount of armor. And then we hover over the bolt rifle, we see that it has armor piercing value of 2. Not the highest, but still decent enough, especially when you're fighting against the hordes of Tyranids. Now, if I go and left click on these Hormagaunts, we get some information, again with that detailed information tab. So the way armor piercing and armor works is different than obviously evasion. Evasion affects the hit chance, armor affects the effectiveness of the damage coming through from that unit. So looking over at this, our AP value on our bolt rifle is 2 versus the armor of the Hormagaunt, which is 1. Leading to 100% effectiveness. Now for every point of AP above the armor of the target, it equals 5% crit chance. So armor differential of 5 gives us that bonus. So in examples where the AP is lower than the armor, the two numbers are divided to give you an effectiveness value. And obviously that's different here. And one real quick thing to point out, you'll see that this is 3 to 5 times 40. That means 40 total shots are going to be fired downrange at these Hormagaunts. And each one of those 40 shots is going to be subject to this 75% hit chance. So just something to kind of take into consideration when you are looking at some of these values and what they actually mean with the respective weapon and what have you. Now let's take a look at these Hellblasters against these Hormagaunts. 6 AP versus 1 armor, that's a 5 AP difference. That's 25 total armor differential difference, of course, equaling 25%. So quite huge. Now, one more example here is taking a look at the intercessors and selecting the Venom Thrope. Now, this has 80% effectiveness because, again, we're taking a look at the 2 AP of the bolt rifle versus the 4 armor of the Venom Thrope. Take those numbers, divide them against each other, and you get 80% effectiveness. Also, look at that accuracy fall off and the evade here, right? They've got a 20 evade versus the Big Daddy had that negative 20. So I'm going to be hitting probably about 20 of my 40 shots. And then of those 20 shots, 80% of them, of those 20 shots, they're going to do about 80% of their total damage. That's why we see that reflected here in 3 to 4 damage, which when our base damage is 3 to 5. Again, we'll just take a look at this compared to the Hormagaunt. 100% effectiveness, so we're doing 3 to 5. 80% effectiveness, so we're doing 3 to 4. And this goes even further to the Big Daddy back here, where we can't even scathe him. 30% effectiveness, it's doing 0 to 1 damage. It's not going to do too well. Don't mind the massive accuracy fall off. And lastly, we'll take a look at the Hellblasters against the Tyrant effects and look at that. We get a little bit better effectiveness there because we're actually going to be able to do some good damage here because of that AP value. So hopefully this gives you an idea of how these things all kind of play together, because it's not necessarily very clear at the beginning, but it is very important to kind of understand how that damage and armor play together in your campaigns in Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. And at that, it brings our list to a close. So hopefully this helps you navigate around some of the complexities in the game. I think the biggest boon is just turning on the detailed info option. A lot of the armor, evasion, and damage and accuracy fall off stuff really kind of comes to the fore once you really can dissect that information tab. And a lot of this information was given to me from Slytherin because I asked, like, hey, some of this stuff doesn't make much sense. Can you help me break this out? And they were so kind as to give me a detailed information as to, again, how this stuff does break out. So a huge shout out and thank you to Slytherin for helping me understand the mechanics of the game to then disseminate them to you guys, and a huge shout out to them for giving me a key to show this off early to you guys. Again, the game does come out July 22nd, and if you have not yet picked it up, you can use my Nexus Store link in the description. It goes a huge way to helping support the channel. But go ahead and let me know in the comment section what you're excited about with Battlesector, or maybe the game's out now and you've discovered some things that are really awesome that you wish people that were just starting knew. Go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. I like to try and disseminate as much information as possible. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.